Okay, so we talked about our side, 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 and our side angle side congruence with triangles. Now we're going to talk about the next two. The first one we have here is going to be our angle side angle. So we're still using the angles and the sides, we're just rearranging, and now we've got two angles instead of a side. This is going to be if we have two angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles and the included side of the second triangle, then they're going to be congruent. So we talked about the included angle. The included angle is the angle between the two sides, the two congruent sides. Now we're looking at the included sides, so we're looking at the side between the two angles. So if you take a look over here with our triangles, we've got an angle right here and an angle right here that are going to be congruent. So here we have an angle. We have an angle. And then in between right here, we've got our side that is between the two congruent angles. So here's a side and a side. And then on the other end over here, we've got another angle. So in the pattern with angle, side, angle, it's going to go in a straight line. Side, angle, side wrapped around the corner. Now we've got angle, side, angle, and you're going to notice the pattern of being in a straight line. It's going to go from one vertex straight down the side to the next vertex, and those will all be marked congruent. As you see here, just one big straight line, angle, side, angle. The other one is angle, angle, side, AAS. This is if you have two angles and the non-included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles and a non-included side of another one will be congruent. So take a look at the picture and how these differ. We no longer have it in the straight line. We're going to go angle, skip a side, angle, side. So you have to follow that same order. We've got this angle here, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run across another angle right here. We're going to skip that side. We're going to go angle to another angle, and then we're going to make our way to the side. So the order is extremely important when you're dealing with two angles and a side. You have to match it with one of these two patterns. Either we're going from an angle, side, angle, all in a straight line. If you find it not going in a straight line, you have two angles and a side, then we have angle, angle, side, AAS. So let's take a look at these examples here. We want to know, can the triangles be proven congruent with the information given? And if so, we want to know which postular theorem. So we're just saying, is side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side. Those are really four we've talked about so far. So we look at the first one here. I see that I've got some angles congruent right here. Okay, so I've got an angle. And then I'm noticing here that I do have sides congruent. So I have a side. And then this is where in the last set of notes with our angle, side, angle, sorry, side, angle, side, SAS, we have to be able to recognize your vertical angles on your own. You will not be told these are congruent. You're going to have to recognize these. So here we'll put down here vertical angles. So we see we've got to keep an eye out for that. Okay, so then we have another A. So we have two A's and S. We need to decide, does it go in a straight line or is it going to skip a side to go to another angle and then a side? And here I see I've got a straight line, so it just reads exactly as you see it, ASA. So yes, we do have congruent triangles. And why or why not? We'll just put ASA. On the next pairs of triangles here, we see that we've got an angle right here and here. We have these two angles that are congruent. So we have another angle. And we don't have any sides, but what we do have is we have those vertical angles again here. But the problem is that gives us a third A. Angle, 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 and you're going to learn this with similar triangles. This will not prove congruency. We have not covered it, and we will not cover it as a way to prove congruency. You cannot use three angle measurements to prove that two triangles are congruent. So this one we're going to answer no. If you wind up with all three angles, if all three angles are congruent, this is a no congruency. If you have three sides, yes, but three angles, no. So why or why not? There's no answer to put there because they're not congruent. So there is no congruency. The next problem that we have here, I see that I've got an angle right here, congruent. So we have congruent angles. I see another pair of congruent angles right here. So we have another A. And then I have this S right here, these sides. So I have an S. Now with this, we have the two A's and an S. So we need to decide, is it in a straight line, or do we go to an angle, skip a side, go to another angle, and then hit the side? Okay, so here I'm going to go to an angle, and I notice I'm not going in a straight line. I'm not going angle, side, angle. I'm going angle, angle, side. Okay, so I want you guys to see the difference between that. Here we go from one angle to the next, one A to the next, and we're going to hit that side, A, S, A. Here we're going to go A, S. So I want you guys to notice the difference between those two so we don't get those confused. So this would be yes, and we have A, S. Our next problem here, we are going to notice that we have 90-degree angle markings right here. This is considered an angle, okay? It is considered an angle because even though it doesn't have the congruent marking, if they're both 90 degrees, we know that they're exactly the same. So this will be one of your A's. I'm noticing that I also have my vertical angles. So we need to see those vertical angles. And then we've got another A, and I see these sides being marked congruent. So I have an S. So we go from one angle to the next. Do we run across that S in between? Is that side between the two angles? Yes. So the S is between the two A's. So these will be congruent. So it's a good way to look at it is that side between the two angles? If so, the S is between the two A's. Our next one here, I see an angle right here that's congruent. So we have an A. We see another pair of angles right here that are congruent. So I have another A. And then we have a side that's congruent. So we have that S. And again, I've mentioned this, in my classes, we always want to make sure we do check both triangles. Okay? So here, if I go from the angle and I look at the order of the letters, is that side between the two angles right here? No, it's over here. So what that means is the S is not going to be in between the two A's. So we're going to go angle to side. And we check out this over here, the bottom one, we go angle to side. So we do have congruent triangles of angle, side, AAS. This one here, I see some angles right here. I see a side right here, and then I see another side right here. But as I discussed with my class, I'm not gonna mention it on the video, but we kind of got a bad word spelling right here. We're going angle, side, side. This is a no-no word. It is a no-no way of proving congruency. So when you wind up with angle, side, side, you can see straight up what it spells. So we cannot use this to prove congruency. So if you ever see that happening, if that angle is not between the two sides, then we do not have congruent triangles. One thing that I do want you guys to note that's going to be very, very important is going to be that any time that you have two A's and an S, two angles and a side, you're going to have congruent triangles. It's either going to be AAS or ASA. So we can put down here a little asterisk there. Two A's and one S will always be congruent. Two A's and one S will always be congruent. You'll either have the ASA or the AAS. That's where I tell my students label these A's and S's, especially make sure you're labeling the pictures with the congruent marks. You have to look at what order those letters are in, especially if you have two A's and an S. But even with the two S's, you got to make sure that you don't have this going on over here. All right. So the last problem is going to be like the last problem we had on the SSS on the first set of notes. We want to say what additional information we need so that we can say that these two triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. So here we're looking at angle, side, angle. Let's look at what we have. Right now, we have an angle right here. So we have one of our A's. We need to remember that we do have that shared side right here. So in order to go ASA, we'd have to go right here in a straight line, ASA. So we would have to identify, I'm going to leave myself a whole lot of room here, these two angles as congruent. Now, we cannot call it angle C because we have two different angles there. So we do have to call it out with the actual, all three letters that create that angle. So we're going to have angle, if you look at the top one first, we have angle QGD. So angle QGD will be congruent to angle, look at the bottom one here, and you'll see later why I'm going in this order. I think that's a G and not a C. We're going to go angle EGD. And on, not the next notes, but the last set of notes for this unit, you guys will understand why I had to follow it. Once I went QGD, I have to go EGD. We have to use corresponding parts, and we'll talk about that in a couple more lessons. But that is it for angle side angle and angle side. Please label your A's and your S's, and please make sure that you are you slow it down and carefully look at the order the letters are in, and make sure that you're double checking both triangles to make sure they both follow the exact same pattern.